Hello everyone and welcome back to the Sideline Sedo YouTube channel. So, first off, before we get into this video, sorry for the delay on last week's reaction. It seems as if quite a few people enjoyed the rant that took place right after the United game with Liverpool. I was intending to have the reaction of all the games uploaded on Monday after the game. I was going to immediately record it, but obviously rant took place and this has been a little delayed. But I just want to thank everybody for the amazing support. It's been kind of crazy, like 800 views or something right now. Yeah, that's honestly fantastic, and hope to see more. But anyways, we're going to get into this reaction to Matchweek 3, and then I'm also going to have my predictions up after this video for Matchweek 4. So, hope you guys enjoy the video. Thank you for the amazing support. It's tremendous. We're going to keep working to make better content on the channel, and hope you guys enjoy. Tottenham 1, Wolves 0. So, for this game, it was one of those games where Tottenham really had to claw it out from Wolves. Wolves playing really good defensively. They had their traditional 3/5 at the back low block, and they were handling Spurs relatively well for the better part of an hour. That was until the 64th minute where Kane struck a goal, and honestly, there was some chances for Wolves. They had 20 shots in total as well, which is quite crazy. Their pass accuracy was 84%. Spurs beat them on the corner battle 8-6, but ultimately, this is a game that Wolves will look at and be like, it's a tough game away at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's not the easiest game to go up against a top 6 team anyways, and being that Wolves is a team that's, over the years, they've lost players. Yes, they got Mateus Nunes, but they are a team in the Premier League that is comfortable with selling players to move on with. They'll look at that as a step in the right direction, but ultimately be disappointed with the loss. Crystal Palace 3, Aston Villa 1. This game was an absolute masterclass from Vieira, quite frankly. We're really starting to see his shape of the team take place. We're seeing his ideals and mentality really instilled into the squad. I mean, even without Michael Elise, this squad was playing fantastic. You had Jeffrey Schlupp in midfield, which works somehow. And Eberechi Eze has been just phenomenal this season. Also, Wilfried Zaha has been on fire. Crazy start to the season. He won the penalty, got it saved, scored on the rebound, and he's in fickle form. I think Villa needs to kick it up a gear because they scored the opener in the first 5 minutes and just immediately conceded to Zaha 2 minutes later. That's not the type of football you want to be playing when you're in Villa's spot. They're spending a lot of money. They have one of the most expensive wage bills in the league. And Stevie G, as much of an idol he is to me, and as great of a player he was, phenomenal captain, he's got to start picking up his act at Villa, because Crystal Palace is a team that he needs to beat if he wants to have a successful season come the end of the season, because Villa doesn't look fully cohesive. They look a little disjointed, but my oh my, do Crystal Palace look like quite an exciting team. Once Michael Elise comes back too, it's going to be real scary. And also, that goal from Mateta was just phenomenal. He came off the bench and immediately just pounced in the box, put it in the back of the net. It was electric seeing that goal go in. And honestly, credit to Crystal Palace. Last week, the week before, I should say, when they drew with Liverpool, I was kind of like a little bitter. But as we saw, Liverpool kind of fell even further in a loss, finally, to Manchester United away. I guess you could say, ultimately, I severely underestimated Crystal Palace this season and Patrick Vieira's propensity to coach a good side. I mean, Villa is a team that isn't the strongest, but they've been putting on consistent performance after consistent performance for a while now, dating back to last season. So building on that is exciting for Crystal Palace fans. They have the right to be excited, and I think they're going to be buzzing and really excited to face City at the Etihad, which is kind of crazy. considering, where City's been in recent years and where Crystal Palace has been. Seeing a Crystal Palace side that looks very rejuvenated and likes to attack and is just, they go for it. Like, I would imagine that's very exciting for all the Crystal Palace supporters currently. Everton 1, Nottingham Forest 1. I didn't catch the bulk of this game, but I did catch the latter 15 to 20 minutes, the finale, if you will. And I saw both goals, and the first one was sent in from Yates. He struck it at goal, and Pickford didn't manage to catch it. It was a low shot, but he managed to save it and kind of send it away immediately to the left wing for Nottingham Forest, where Brennan Johnson was wide open, just curled in a low effort to the right post, hit it in, and he went off and celebrated. And then moments later, about 7 minutes later, we saw Pickford kind of standing there, and then he kind of just launches a ball all the way upfield. It goes past Nottingham Forest's back line and into the path to Mari Gray, who's onside, and just slots it away to make it 1-1. Ultimately, I feel like this is an even, probably fair result for both teams. They're going to be in that, I feel, bottom half of the table probably region. They're going to be fighting for relegation, to not get relegated, rather, and they're both in that kind of ballpark. Steve Cooper versus Lampard, both managers with something to prove. I feel like they'll be slightly besmirched to walk away with it with nothing, especially because, Nottingham Forest was away. They took the lead, and then they blew the lead to draw, so they're going to be kind of angry. And Everton, they'll probably wish they put a better performance against the Nottingham Forest team that they probably should want to beat if they want to have a successful season compared to last, which I would say is not be dragged down into the relegation battle quite as much and be more of a mid-table to upper mid-table team. Admittedly, that's maybe a little far off for Everton right now, but ultimately both goals were quite entertaining to watch, and nothing more to add. Fulham 3, Brentford 2. This game started immediately with Reed scoring in the first minute. From there, we saw Palhinha score a goal in the 20th, and then Norgard at the 44th, right before halftime happened, scored another. I feel like this game was marked mostly by the entertaining end to it. Ivan Toney scores in the 71st, does Mitro's traditional, his, trademark celebration, the little hand kind of shake towards his ear. And right in the 90th, Alexander Mitrovic scores to win the game. And my, oh my, he does it back to him. And this is quite interesting to see because we don't often look at direct player rivalries. I don't know if you could even call this a rivalry. It is just kind of a funny thing that happened in the game and kind of backfired in Ivan Toney's face. But ultimately, they did play together at Newcastle. But at the end of the day, Fulham got their first win. Brentford got their first loss. And both these sides, I think, are off to pretty solid starts in the season with both very competent number 9s up top. It's very interesting seeing the progression. It's almost as if almost every team now all of a sudden has a proper 9 or at least needs a proper 9 to compete. Last season, Liverpool didn't have a traditional 9. City didn't have a traditional 9. But now both of them have it, and almost every other team has one too. So it's quite interesting seeing the kind of transition from last season to this season. Leicester 1, Southampton 2. So Southampton traveled to the King Power, and poor old Leicester, you can't help but feel bad for him. I really think selling Schmeichel and not having a proper replacement for him is just absolutely a terrible idea. Past that, they didn't feature Wesley Fofana in the game, who is, as of today, set to sign for Chelsea, according to Fabrizio Romano. So it seems as if they're going down a darker path of, selling on these players. But yes, another one of their star players, James Maddison, scores in this game, but ultimately it's a loss. And ultimately, Brendan Rodgers isn't steering the ship, in my opinion, at least, in a right direction. Danny Ward's in that. No offense to him. He played for Liverpool way back when. But quite frankly, I don't think he is on the same sync, they're not synced together. Leicester's aspirations for this season, or what I would assume their aspirations are, which is, being a mid-table to, European potentially placed team, a team that's kind of competing in that 5 to 8 range. Maybe a team like that can't end up there at the end of the season with Danny Ward and that. It just isn't possible. And furthermore, if Maddison does go before the season, this season's transfer window ends, then I can't help but feel that this is going to be a really tough season for Leicester. You would hope that they reinvest that money, but considering that they haven't signed a single player, even if they do go and replace Wesley Fofana and James Maddison and maybe even bring in a third player, I don't think it's going to be nearly as good as the squad that they had last season. So I think this is going to be really tough for Leicester, but I think it's going to be a harder season than I predicted, maybe than others predicted, especially if Rodgers walks and there isn't like a solid replacement in there plus solid financial backing. But credit to Che Adams, he scored in the 68th and the 84th to see Southampton win this game on the road. And for Hassan Hoodle and his boys, I think that's a result that they're going to pat themselves on the back on and hope to move forward and get some better form going forward so that they don't have to be struggling maybe in the relegation zone come end of the season. But solid performance from them. Bournemouth 0, Arsenal 3. So Arsenal visited the Vitality and faced off against Bournemouth, and in the 5th minute Odegaard scores, and then in the 11th minute he gets his brace. And from there it was just Arsenal playing really solid passing football, dominating possession, and ultimately, playing this sort of football that's kind of becoming more trademark to them under Arteta, which is kind of like I've been referring to it as a Manchester City light, where they're, playing really accurate passes, 89% for the game. They're outpassing their opponents. They had 517 accurate passes to Bournemouth's 324, and they're creating a lot of chances. It was 14 shots for Arsenal to Bournemouth's 6, and don't think I'm going to stop this section without mentioning that beauty that William Saliba scored. I mean, he looks like a Rolls Royce of a center half, truly. He seems like he could pass the ball really well. He's strong, seems good in the air, has some good stamina, pretty pacey, and if he can score long-range strikes like that, then I feel like the sky is the limit for this guy. Arsenal fans, I think you guys truly have a gem on your hands, and Saliba and the squad is showing better and better strides week in, week out, so they're looking better and better constantly. And I know it's Bournemouth, but Arsenal's the only team that's won every game so far, and we'll see how well they can keep this up. Tomorrow they're facing off against Fulham. We'll get into that in the next video, but I think Arsenal's on a molten hot run of form, and their fans have a lot to be excited about. Leeds 3, Chelsea 0. So Chelsea versus Leeds, the American derby technically. You have Jesse Marsh versus Todd Boehly effectively too, and this game was really special from Leeds. I think this is validation and affirmation for Leeds in many a way. I think that this squad looks like they're really hardworking. They go for it. I mean, Rodrigo scored another goal. He got an assist too. Brennan Aronson scored the first goal, which I don't know what Thomas Tuchel thinks, but quite frankly, Mendy isn't the type of guy that's going to distribute like Ederson or Allison or a sweeper keeper, because he's not a sweeper keeper. He's a shot stopper. And quite frankly, it seemed as if after that goal went in, Brendan Harrison chases down Mendy, wins the ball off him, and basically no-looks it into the goal. After that, I feel like the pressure was really on. There was a red card towards the end of the game for Kalidou Koulibaly in the 84th minute. Ultimately, you never want to see a red card, especially when you're 3-0 down away to Leeds for Chelsea. So tough look for Kalidou Koulibaly, but he'll bounce back strong. He's one of the best center backs in the world, so that's totally understandable. The other goals for Leeds past the other goal, I should say, for Leeds past the Brennan Aronson goal and the Rodrigo header was Jack Harrison, who assisted Rodrigo, and Rodrigo assisted Jack Harrison. So quite an interesting front four they got there as of right now, with Daniel James / Sinisterra, Harrison, Rodrigo, and Aronson in there. I feel like this Leeds squad is really taking excellent shape as of right now, and they keep marching on. West Ham 0, Brighton 2. So West Ham is in a bit of a state of peril, maybe a bit of a state of panic, I would say. They're the only squad to not have gotten a point yet this season. From their first 3 games, they've collected a total of 0 points from 9, and they haven't even scored a goal. So kind of a rough look, but David Moyes is a notoriously slow starter, and I would think West Ham are too. They've had a few seasons recently where they start slow, but then they kind of bounce back harder and then are a really tough team for a while, and then they kind of middle out and find their place in the table, which is usually like mid-table to higher mid-table in recent memory at least. But credit to Graham Potter. He's really having a solid start to the season. They're in 5th right now. 2 wins, 1 draw, 0 losses. So they're one of 7 teams, it seems, that hasn't lost a game yet. So that's pretty exciting. They have, there was a lot of doubts as to whether Brighton would perform well without, Yves Bissouma, without Marc Cucurella. But Moises Caicedo and even Trossard, they've been playing really good just as a team, Brighton, and those guys have came in and they play really nice. So I don't know what else to say, but I hope West Ham can bounce back, and just full credit to Brighton. They're really, blossoming even more this season. We're seeing their approach in the market really paying off with buying younger players who are cheaper and selling their stars for profit to be able to reinvest in the squad. And yeah, I had my doubts for them this season, but Graham Potter is class. Newcastle 3, Manchester City 3. So this is probably the game of the season so far, in my opinion. Just end-to-end stuff, really. Newcastle was just attacking City constantly, and Saint-Maximin made Kyle Walker look like an absolute wet pudding. He looked like an even better version of himself. Now, if he could finally just kind of start chipping in with some goals, that would be really nice, I would assume, for a lot of the Newcastle fans. But he did assist the first one, and he was just absolutely phenomenal down that left flank. Callum Wilson scored the second for Newcastle. Might I add that City scored in the 5th minute as well. Ilkay Gundogan found the back of the net. And then at halftime, it was 2-1 because of Callum Wilson's goal. Both of the first 2 actually were assisted by Saint-Maximin. My apologies. And then in the second half, we saw Newcastle take the lead in the 54th with another free kick from Kieran Trippier. It seems like it's a specialty nowadays, bend it like Beckham, or like, twist and turn it like Trippier. And then we saw Erling Haaland score to make it 3-2, and Bernardo Silva to score to make it 3-3. My favorite thing past the actual action of the game, I guess, not actual action, but past the goals and the assists, was the fact that in the 73rd minute, we saw this kind of like tactical foul, it seemed, from Kieran Trippier, but ultimately it resulted in the ref pulling out of a red card and sending Trippier off. But the ref was, there was kind of like this air of like tension, it seemed. Kevin De Bruyne came and consoled Trippier immediately. It didn't look like De Bruyne was too hurt. There was some thoughts as to whether it was too high of a tackle, were the studs showing. But ultimately, the ref takes it upon himself, goes and looks at VAR, says, you know what, nah, that's a yellow card. And honestly, I'm all for that. I'm all for more transparency in the sport. I'm all for refs not being afraid to say, okay, well, in that moment, I wasn't exactly correct, and reverting it and reversing their decision sometimes, because oftentimes it feels like, at least with the very early introduction of VAR, what it felt like was you would see a lot of these basically refs come up and they'd make a questionable decision and they'd go look at VAR and they'd uphold it and it would still be like highly questionable. And it felt like their egos were getting in the way of it. But credit to, what's this ref's name? Jared Gillette. He refed a pretty solid game, I'd say. I think there was moments where, it got a little cagey, but ultimately I think that he did a solid job. And I think we should applaud him for reversing the red to a yellow because it made for a more entertaining game at the end of the day. And ultimately, yeah, solid weekend of fixtures. And if you haven't, please go check out the other video where I ranted about Liverpool's loss to Manchester United. It's doing numbers right now relative to my first 7-8 videos. So that's truly awesome. I love to see it and I love the support. If you haven't, please like, subscribe, share, and comment if you will, if you have any input, if you agree with my takes in the video, what have you. And as always, I'm Sideline Sedo. Stay gold.